no one goes hungry and no one is in need. But the rest of the population, 80%, very mild symptoms or no symptoms, others with moderate symptoms. Well, are we going to destroy the world economic system by saying that those people also have to isolate and not go to work? Yeah. For me, that's crazy. Focus on those who are in danger. Throw everything at them. Cocoon them if necessary. But cocoon them with fairness and with compassion and with total support. But the rest of the population, I got exactly the same symptoms, I repeat, before Christmas. And I carried on working. Weren't pleasant for 2 or 3 days, coughed some stuff up and all that. But you get on with it. And this is happening to people all the time. I'll give you an analogy, Brian. Years ago, you might remember this, we used to have a thing called weather. And weather used to change, and there used to be storms, and there used to be, strong weather situations, and we used to call it weather. Now, every time that happens, as it's always happened, now it's climate change, we're all gonna die. And what we have now is the coronavirus version of that. Everything is coronavirus. We don't even know if so many people have been logged as having had it, actually have it. When you're testing, like I said earlier, on symptoms, well, these symptoms are true of many different things. Who says this person's got it or this person hasn't got it? We don't know. The point is, they're not dying from it. They're not even, most of them, being affected more than very mild symptoms. So why are we locking them away and bringing down the world economic system and destroying people's businesses, livelihoods, ability to pay the rent? Why are we doing that and not just focusing totally on those who could have a serious problem because of their immune system deficiencies?
I don't know. And they're telling us...
I'll tell you why. Because if they carried on and allowed that to happen, the world economic system would not be demolished. And the idea is to demolish it so you can replace it. Problem, reaction, solution. That's why.
Right. They're telling us that we have to lock everybody down to save the elderly and the less immune. That's what they're telling us, but it doesn't make any sense to me, David. And I put out a video on Saturday. I got a lot of heat for it. Got like 250,000 views, and I said, I'm ready to get the virus. Give it to me and all of the strong ones. Let's build up an immunity to it, and over the long term, we can have this herd immunity and potentially protect these people. But I can't believe the measures I'm hearing about. They're talking about locking everybody in their homes in New York City. My sister's in San Francisco. They're being locked into their homes. It seems like an overkill to my logical brain.
What are you actually describing if we break it down? You're describing mass house arrest.
Yes.
That's what you're describing.
Exactly what it is. Shelter something they call it.
That's what it is. And this idea that we're protecting you. And see, this is the key.
They say you're protecting grandma that's living with you.
Yeah.
So we're going to lock you down as well so you don't hurt her.
Well, I would be open to cocooning people who have a serious reaction to this because of their immune systems. I would be open to that for their sake. But to do it to the rest of the population, people that aren't living with old people, and bringing the economic system down with it as planned, is insane. But as always with this cult, there's method in the madness. And that's what we're seeing. Look at the outcome. The outcome will tell you what's behind it. What's that great line? Goes back to ancient Rome. Who benefits? Who benefits? That great line, he who most benefits from a crime is the one most likely to have committed it. Let's ask that question. Who benefits from what's happening and what's being justified on the basis of this, quote, virus? Anyone that wants to transform human society into an Orwellian state, which I've been saying that that's exactly where they are taking us for 30 years. So if people just take a breath and look at it and say, who benefits? And why is this craziness destroying who benefits from the economic system being destroyed? Anyone that wants to put another one in place. And you know, I've said this many times as we've chatted. This whole conspiracy, the whole cult way of manipulating society is psychologically. It's a psychological game. You know, when there's a few of you, and compared with the global population, they are a very few, you can't control people physically. You can do it in a certain area through troops and the army, and what they want to do is do it absolutely through connecting AI to the human brain. But for the moment, they can't. How you have to do it is you have to program people's perceptions, because from perceptions comes behavior. It's a real simple thing. Your perceptions become your behavior. And you go one step back, where do your perceptions come from? They come from information received. So if you control the information, the constant narrative, and most people just believe it because that's all they hear. Repetition is the wonderful, magnificent form of mind control. You control the information, you overwhelmingly control perception among those that don't question. And from perception, you control behavior. And what they're manipulating now, as they do all the time, but here is a wonderful, potent example of it, is they're manipulating this, what appears to be this innate human trait of fear of death, which is an expression of another innate human trait, which is fear of the unknown. So the reptilian brain at the back of the brain is it's a survival mechanism along with other parts of the brain, but this is a big one, the reptilian brain at the back. And the reptilian brain doesn't think, it reacts. And it's constantly scanning the environment for threats to survival. Not just threats to life, threats to your job, threats to your relationship, threats to everything. And this kind of background anxiety that people feel, a lot of it comes from here. And if you're driving your car and someone walks in front of your car, what bangs the brakes on is the reptilian brain, because it doesn't think. It reacts far quicker than the thinking processes react. I mean, when someone walks in front of your car, you're not going to say, oh, do you think I should stop? What do you think, dear? Bang! Now that's great, and it's part of the survival mechanism. But when the reptilian brain survival mechanism starts impacting upon general life, then all hell breaks loose, chaos breaks loose. And give you two examples of it. Panic buying. Panic buying is the survival mechanism kicking in. And when that kicks in and it's not kept under control, it perceives its survival to be the only thing that matters. So if I have to survive and you don't for me to survive, well, fair enough, because I've got to survive. This is panic buying. I mean, we've had fights in supermarket aisles over toilet rolls. You know, you run out of toilet rolls, use the morning papers. What could be more appropriate? You can't wipe your ass with the BBC and CNN, unfortunately, but if you could, you should. And so this panic buying is this survival mechanism kicking in. And something else comes from that. The survival mechanism will agree to anything, no matter how draconian and how fascistic, so long as it perceives it will aid its survival. So what a pandemic does, what they call a pandemic, that was declared by Tedros at the World Health Organization anyway, what a pandemic does is it kicks in this survival mechanism. And it means that not only will you accept authority imposing tyranny, you will demand that authority imposes tyranny. And something else. Tell you what one of the punchlines of this virus is. It's the bloody vaccine. You know, very early on after this virus started, I read a report about an Israeli government minister saying we're far ahead of anyone else in developing a vaccine. Oh, really? I thought this is interesting. And it turns out that from 2016, this scientific organization in Israel, which is all connected to the government like they all are, had been using coronavirus to test its technology. And so because of that, it's further along the road, it says, to developing a vaccine. And one of the scientists said, it was pure luck that we chose that. Well, some may believe that. And some of us may say, well, I think I'll hold on that one, thanks. And then when you've got all these other areas of the world where they're developing a vaccine, we have already had Denmark announce that any vaccine for coronavirus will be mandatory. Now, if you can give me a better definition of fascism than the state telling you what will go into your body, then I'd like to bloody hear it. They don't even know what the vaccine is, but it's mandatory. Now, this is going to expand. It's just a coincidence, Brian, that in the period up to this, more and more pressure for mandatory vaccinations of other kinds have been appearing in America. We've got this health secretary in Britain saying he's minded to consider it. What do you mean you're minded to consider it? You'll be in another ministry shortly. You were in another one not long ago. It's your civil service permanent government that's actually pressing for it. You're just the front man. So you've had all this period of pressing for mandatory vaccinations. And when this vaccination for this virus comes up, there is going to be enormous pressure to make it compulsory. And people with a brain who say, hold on a minute.
What if that's the only cure?
Well, is it a cure? Who decides that?
I don't know.
Who decides that?
A scientist might.
Oh, God, science.
Well, science isn't always wrong.
No, but science.
For smallpox, the vaccine works.
Science is massively wrong with the benefit of hindsight.
Some vaccines work. Smallpox vaccine.
Just look at the problem reaction solution. You want to introduce a vaccine. What is in the vaccine, what we're not told is in it or whatever, we don't know. But, we're all going to die. Vaccinate me. Don't even think about it. Survival mechanism. But
what if that is the only solution?
Well, who decides that it's the only solution? My children, my boys, have not been vaccinated once in their life. They didn't have childhood diseases. Their immune systems are on fire because they weren't compromised by a tidal wave of toxic shite while their immune systems were still developing. Do you know something? In the 1980s, the Congress gave immunity from prosecution to the drug companies for vaccines. And you know why this was in the official documentation. The reason they said they gave them immunity from prosecution, so now in America there is a vaccine court which has already paid out something like $42 billion for vaccine injuries, and the bar to prove that is very high. It's now paid by the taxpayer. And so the drug companies have no economic consequences for damaging vaccinations. And
I think they're trying to get drug companies to consider creating vaccines because they're not economically profitable.
Hold on. What, not economically profitable? My goodness me. Have you seen the profits of drug companies?
Yeah, because they have regular medicine.
But the point is that the reason they said we must give immunity is because they said vaccines are innately unsafe and cannot be made not to be. Thus, we're going to give you immunity, so you'll continue making them. Because at that point, before that legislation came in, the drug companies were facing a massive number of lawsuits for vaccine injuries. Now, you know what's happened since that legislation in 1986? The number of vaccines and the different kinds of vaccines have absolutely exploded. Why? Because there's no consequence anymore. And if you look at the statistics, if you vaccinate a large number of people, you are going to have major life-changing implications for a number of those people. So what mandatory vaccinations are saying is, we are going to insist by law that your children are vaccinated, and we know by doing that that some of them who wouldn't otherwise have been vaccinated are going to take the consequences.
Right, because it's for the greater good.
Oh, the greater
Okay.
good. They couldn't care less about the greater good. Can we just understand that? And then we might get some kind of grasp on how this world is run. They don't care about us. They use the excuse of caring about us to justify what they want to do. It's as simple as that. Now they're using the elderly to shut down the economic system as an excuse, involving people who economically will be absolutely destroyed already, never mind as it goes on.
Okay. Let me ask you about a few other things. I want to get to the technology in China because it's a very interesting point.
Okay.
Trump. I look at Trump and I look at a guy. It doesn't make sense how he's behaving because it's in his interest to see the economy do well, to see the stock market go up, because that's how he's going to get reelected. And yet I see him right now locking down an entire country, which is sure to drop the markets, kill business, and potentially kill his reelection. So why would he buy into something like this?
Well, we come back to something I've been chatting with you about all these times. He's a front man. There's a permanent government. You see, this cult controls the permanent government. There's a permanent government in every country, and globally there's a permanent government. That's what I mean. You've got the politicians, whether it's a president from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, whether it's Labour, goodness knows, Labour, when they're going to do it again, if ever, and Conservatives. And you have the rosettes coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. Here today, gone tomorrow. But the permanent government is always there. This is the cult controlling that government via secret societies, through the financial system, through the intelligence agencies, through the upper echelons of the military, through government administration, and what has become known now as the deep state. And that is always there. George Bush